So I had this, of course I get the question here and there, are you natural or not? So this video is one that I've been wanting to do for a little while and I've been looking forward to doing. And now that it's been almost a year to the date since I last got on stage in a national men's physique bodybuilding competition, I've kind of felt like I've had the time to reflect back on things and compare my training then and the off season leading up to the show, the prep for the show, versus my experience training prior, the 5 years prior, and really the last year too, getting healthy again and training with natural levels. So I had this, of course I get the question here and there, are you natural or not? Well, really up until that show, I was. So I had trained natural for just over 5 years. Really one of the last videos I had here on this channel was my 5-year natural transformation. I think shortly after that, I went into the bulk for the competition that was coming up at the end of the year, which was that national show I had referenced in. So that was my first time cycling. Of course, I can't tell you exactly what protocol I took. My goal isn't to persuade you to take anything or give you advice on what to take at all. It's really just to share my experience with things and kind of what I've learned and what I plan to do with that moving forward. So I took that first cycle, and then that was about 8 weeks, 10 weeks, kind of estimating. And then I got ready for the cut, which was another 10 to 12 weeks, which was a separate cycle. And so I had a short break in between the two. Yeah, really, truthfully, so comparing that, we'll call it 4 to 5 months, right? Comparing that 4 to 5 months to the 5 years previous and the year since then, there were some changes, but a lot was similar. So I kind of broke it down into a few different areas that I thought were the most relevant in terms of actually sharing the experience. So number one being my diet is still, it's not like I took stuff and I could eat whatever I wanted to eat. I was still dieting honestly just as hard. I had done, to qualify for the national show, a regional competition, probably about 6 or 7 months prior to everything. And yeah, just looking at the two, the diets were pretty similar. I probably had a little bit more when it came to being enhanced and cutting. Like I felt like my body could actually utilize those 6 meals that I was eating every day leading up to the show. Of course, I still dropped the carbs pretty drastically, over the whole week as it got closer to the show. But macros were still similar. High protein, kept my fats low, and then I would carb cycle, and as the show approached, the total amount of carbs I was eating would drop. And cheat meals with my coach, they were still hard to come by, so it's not like I had some golden ticket by being enhanced. Moving from the diet, the next thing I want to touch on is the supplements. And these are kind of the things you guys see here on the channel all the time. So like my morning supplements, what I'm taking pre-workout, post-workout, almost everything stayed the same. I take my morning essentials from Revive, the multivitamins, the magnesium, the vitamin D3, probiotic, greens here and there. But the two things I did add when I was on the cycle were a kidney and liver support from Revive. And, that's for the reason that the being enhanced in what you take to be enhanced, of course, puts a little bit more stress on the liver, can put more stress on the kidneys. So I wanted to make sure I was taking care of that as best I could, or at least as best I knew how, while I was prepping for that show. But the rest of the supplements stayed the same. Pre-workout, I was still doing, I think at the time, I was working with another company, but I was testing out some raw stuff just because I needed something that I just needed something that was formulated a little better. This is before I ever thought of working with the company. So I was testing out, I think it was just their raw pre. I didn't really know about their pump yet. If I had, I would have been taking the pump as well, because that stuff is good. But other than that, just doing a vegan protein, my usual 5 to 6 grams of creatine daily, and I would take that protein shake right after I trained. So same thing I had done the 5 years prior for the most part, same thing I've done in the year since competing. And of course that brings us to the training. Now, I think the biggest difference in training, and I think I can kind of pair these two together, in training and recovery. The biggest difference in training and recovery is with recovery, I noticed I recovered more efficiently because I was doing more volume, more weight, so more sets, reps, and total weight used each workout, and I was still able to recover I'd say similar to how I was recovering, prior to prepping for that show. Now, of course, I was doing a lot more work, so I would have expected to not recover as well. But, because I was enhanced, that gave me the ability to recover. Of course, my sleep was still on point. Like I mentioned, my nutrition was still on point. So that kind of gave me the best environment to recover. And for the training, like I mentioned, I could do more volume. I stayed stronger on that cut versus the last cut as I lost weight because I'm preserving more muscle tissue. Again, I still had to put in the time when it comes to cardio. That's just my coach's style. Like, he likes implementing a good amount of cardio to really bring in the conditioning. So that meant fasted cardio, 30 to 40 minutes the last couple weeks of prep on top of 30 to 40 minutes of post-workout cardio. And, that's every day. So I think towards the end of prep, it was 6 days a week doing 2 sessions a day. And then on that last day, I would just do cardio. And that brings me to the last topic I want to touch on, which is the side effects. Now, this is just based on my personal experience with the cycle I ran. There's a lot of different cycles out there. Even if people would have run the same cycle that I took, there's different side effects that could come up. But one big one was my liver. Even though I was taking supplements to help protect my liver, it still took a hit. That could have been for a variety of reasons. It's hard to say. Obviously, once I realized my liver numbers were out of whack, my ALT and my AST, that's when I spent that probably the greater part of like 3 months, really focusing on bringing them down, getting them to healthy levels where I wasn't having any side effects from my liver being a little bit inflamed. So, again, it's hard to say what caused that. Outside of that, there's things like, it's definitely more susceptible to water retention, and the general consensus from what I've heard and learned on being enhanced is the more you take, the longer you're on things, then the higher chance you'll have side effects, and potentially those side effects could be more severe. So I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to go into that too much because it's very case specific, but it is something that influenced my decisions moving forward. So that's why I mention it. I decided this year to take the year off, not compete. I just moved back from Florida, moved up to Cleveland, just to focus on business. There's a lot I want to do on the channel that's outside of just me prepping for a show. So one, it gave me space for that, but two, it also made sure, okay, I could continue to do what I really love doing and not put my health at as much of a risk as competing puts it. So will I do a show next year? If I really feel like the timing's right, if I feel like I can do it healthier than I did it the first time around in terms of prepping enhanced, then yeah. At this stage, for me to turn pro at the national level, I know that's the path that most likely I'll need to revisit to get there. But for the time being, I've been much happier this last year, staying healthy, maintaining healthy levels, enjoying training, and then, just manipulating my physique with my nutrition. Like, I'm finishing a mini cut here and just enjoying having a little tighter body composition, not having to take anything crazy. And just enjoying the general lifestyle of it too, because I think maybe that's one side effect I didn't touch on is, when you're enhanced, that there's, more things have to be taken care of on a weekly basis. Now, I kind of had asked if there were any specific topics you guys wanted me to go over in this video, in the last video. So there were some I covered just now, but there are a few I wanted to touch on at the end of this video. So this is my favorite one out of the bunch. We'll start here. The question was, what helps you to keep such a positive attitude about your daily training and life? You were sick, missed days of training, yet you still remain humble and positive about it all. What keeps you this way? Well, I appreciate that. I think it's more the mentality for me going into it. Like, I understand that I'm gonna have setbacks. I don't expect things to be smooth. I expect something to happen. Now, I don't expect to be detained in Mexico or get food poisoning or kind of move last minute. Like, there's a lot of different things in this cut that were really outside of what I could have imagined. But again, when something happens, I look at it like, okay, well, what can I still control? Like, even when I was in Mexico for a week in that detainment center with my girlfriend, I was like, okay, well, I'm healthy. I can move around. I got a little bit of space. There's a little like outdoor yard that, I can do some body weight calisthenics, circuit training, I can come up with something, at least to get moving. You know, I was given meals, but okay, I don't want the little dessert that they got on the meal, the little pastry or whatever. So let me see if I can trade that for some more eggs or, an extra tortilla or something. So it's just looking at your situation. At least for me, it was looking at my situation and saying, okay, what can I control? What can I do now? Because this is going to be temporary. So what can I do now that'll put me in the best position when I'm out of this? And kind of keeping that, whether it was something kind of bigger or something smaller, keeping that in the front of my mind and knowing it's normal, like not feeling like, oh man, now I'm thrown way off. It's like, no, okay, something was going to eventually happen. So now it's just up to me and how I handle it. I think that keeps me pretty positive because then I don't have an expectation for things to be smooth or go my way. I almost expect it to not, and then I'm prepared to handle it accordingly. Next question, he said, Happy New Year's. If you could explain what each supplement you take from Revive and Raw are and what they're for and when you take them throughout the day. This would probably take a good little minute to explain. So truthfully, I'm not just saying this to make you go watch another video, but the guys I work with, Zach and Mike, do a phenomenal job of filming. Go check out, I'll link it here, I'll link it below in the video description, the last full day of eating I had done. I cover all of my morning supplements, my pre-workout, my post-workout, which of course goes over the timing, how much I'm taking, what I'm taking, and I kind of describe the benefits of each one in that. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me a comment down below in this video in the comment section. If you have product questions, if you guys ever do, really any videos, just shoot me a question. I'm in there pretty often in between uploads, and more than happy to answer if you guys are curious, because I want to get you put on the raw because it's some good stuff. And the last one for today, he says, can you give me some tips on how to take the next step by moving out from my parents' home to living alone in an apartment? I think that's a good one because like that, I feel like you learn so much when you're out on your own, and you're looking at your bank account, you're looking at your expenses, and you're like, shoot, all right, I have this much money and I gotta get this far with it. I know I have these bills, I gotta get to the grocery store, all that stuff. So you're not as stressed when you do that. I recommend if you're still in a situation where you're living with someone else, whether it's family, friends, and you're blessed to not have to pay too much for that rent, or if you're having to pay anything, use that to practice a budget then. It's a lot easier to learn how to budget or at least a lot less stressful to learn how to budget when your living situation doesn't depend on it. So if you can budget then when you're ready to move out, you can factor in any additional expenses, and then be able to, you'll know, okay, how much can I pay for an apartment? When am I going to be ready to move out? How much do I need to have saved up? All that kind of stuff. But get that done ahead of time. That's like the best thing I can say, because I've been in the position where I've been living month to month, paying rent, and it's a lot more stressful. Of course, sometimes when you're in that position, it's kind of like when you have to, you find a way. So there is some of that too. That's why I said it's not necessarily easier one way or the other, because sometimes you need a little extra kick in the behind to kind of get yourself managing things a little more responsibly. But it's a lot less stressful if you just do all that before. So budget ahead of time, have a plan, don't overspend. You're only gonna be in that apartment for so long. And I guess you just gotta kind of learn as you go too. You won't have everything planned out. But that's everything for this video. Thank you guys for listening, watching. I'm definitely curious to see your comments below on this one. I'll be reading through. I mean, that's kind of my honest experience with anything. If there's other questions you guys have on it, I'll answer what I can. Again, I'm not going to recommend anything. I can't tell you what I took for obvious reasons. But that's all I have for you in this one. I got to go train some legs. But what do I know? I'm just Mert.